Hello, fanatics. My true crime fanatics at that. I'm not kitting up today. I thought I would diamond paint. I'm working on Rainbow by the Shore. The name escaped me for a second. I think it's 50 by 60. And it's a John Kenwood piece. He is my landscape guy. He does really amazing landscapes. And so I thought I would diamond paint and talk about a true crime. Yes. Today is Mother's Day here in the UK. So happy Mother's Day, whether you are stateside. I know it's just a Sunday for you guys, but happy Mother's Day to all the mums out there. You celebrate too, okay? And yeah, Mother's Day. So I thought, let's do Mummy's Little Helpers. True crime. Because it's Mother's Day. Why not? We've got to have a sinister turn at the end of the day, haven't we? So yeah, grab your diamond painting or whatever you're doing. Let me know what you do when you listen to my true crime. Do you diamond paint? Do you housework? Work on another craft? You have to let me know in the comments section, because I like to know these things, as well as your thoughts and comments on these true crimes. They get a bit much, don't they? So, as you all know, I will be moving house very, very soon, and I might be MIA for a little while on my lives and everything, but I'll be back, and it's going to give me plenty of time to get ahead in my true crime, because I will be diamond painting and recording and talking, because I can't upload them yet, but I can get ahead, right? As well as obviously unpack in our new house, wherever that may be. Don't get me started, because it's all getting very stressful. But yeah, grab whatever you are doing, whatever craft you are working on. Come join me for this true crime. And oh dear, please remember to grab a drink as well. I have a cup of tea, of course I do. Don't do anything without a cup of tea. So let's dig into today's true crime. Are we ready? Okay. Hilma Marie was just 8 years old in the mid-1950s when her family moved to a nudist camp in Delray Beach, which is in Florida. I did not know that, but there you go. That is just north of Miami. Her mother, Margaret O'Donnell, and her stepfather managed the camp for several years, where people could pay for admission and feel free to be themselves. Just a few years earlier, Margaret had lost custody of her 2 young daughters briefly when she was admitted into a mental hospital for emotional problems. However, their new life in the nudist camp appeared to change her outlook. When Hilma turned 16 years old, she married a young man from the camp in a nudist wedding. Despite being underage, 16, Margaret sold admission to the camp as usual and allowed Patreons to take photos of the wedding. Some photos made their way into a nudist magazine, but that didn't seem to bother Margaret, her mum. Hilma's marriage didn't last long, but she soon met another man at the nudist camp. Paul Whitty, I think is how you pronounce it. Paul was a large, burly man, 10 years older than Hilma. 10 years older. He loved the outdoors, obviously, and enjoyed fishing and hunting. Paul and Hilma were married and moved to another seaside town much further north, Beverly Shores in Indiana. Paul worked as a mill worker and a volunteer firefighter in northern Indiana. Hilma and Paul had 2 sons, Eric and John. And as soon as they were old enough, he took them out camping, hunting and fishing. Though he tried his best to be a loving husband and a father, he had anger issues, and his idea of discipline was extreme. Hilma and the young boys were often beaten at the hands of Paul. Ever since Eric could remember, he had been beaten by his father. Eric was the elder of the sons, and Paul felt he needed strict discipline in order to become a strong man. Though John was abused too, he didn't receive quite the same treatment as his older brother. Hilma was a target of Paul's abuse as well. When Paul went after Eric, she would get out of the way. Hilma would hide in another room of the house until the punishment was done, for fear that if she intervened or tried to stop him, she would become the target. After each beating, when Paul had left the room, Hilma stepped in to comfort her crying son. Although he appreciated the soothing sympathy of his mother, Eric's world changed one day when he was 8 years old. His father had whipped and beaten Eric quite brutally after he caught Eric in a lie about his grades. Afterwards, his mother iced his wounds. She whispered a shocking thought to her son. Quote, "You can't keep going through this. He has to be stopped. Wouldn't it be better if he was dead?" End quote. He didn't know how to respond to such a suggestion. In the days following the beating, Eric's bruises were still sore to the touch. At school, he was embarrassed to show his face that had obvious shades of purple. While Paul was away at work, Hilma sat down with Eric and made it known to him that she was serious. "We need to do something. If you were to do it, how would you do it?" Again, Eric didn't know how to respond, but Hilma had some ideas of her own. She told Eric she would try to poison his father. It was all for the good of the family. In the past, Paul had an adverse reaction to the sedative Valium, and his doctor suggested that he may be allergic to it. Knowing this, Hilma began feeding him Valium in his food and disguised it in the daily vitamins that he took. When he didn't react, she gradually increased the dosage. However, each time, he had no reaction other than drowsiness. When the Valium didn't work, she began using rat poison that contained, yes, you guessed it, arsenic. Any chance she got, Hilma put small amounts of the poison in his food and vitamins. Over the course of several years, she continued increasing the dosage, but Paul still had little reaction other than becoming sick. Perhaps she fed it to him so gradually he had slowly built up a tolerance. By the time Eric was 15, Hilma had put more and more pressure on him to do something about his father. He was the recipient of most of Paul's anger, and she suggested he take matters into his own hands to save the family. She couldn't do it herself. By the summer of 1981, Hilma had put together a plan to kill her husband. She convinced Eric that if he shot his father, he would be tried as a juvenile. She told Eric that by the time he reached 18, he would be released and they would be free of Paul's abuse. Hilma supplied Eric with a handgun and told him to hide it behind the front door and wait for Paul to come home from work, then shoot him as he walked in. The obedient boy did as his mother told him and hid behind the door with his stomach in knots. When his father walked in the door, Eric stood frozen. Without seeing Eric, Paul walked to the couch and lay down. Eric was still frozen behind the door, unable to move. When he finally heard his father snoring, he lost his nerve and walked away. He couldn't do it. Fear kept him from pulling the trigger. He explained to his mother that he had failed, but Hilma was undeterred, telling him, "We'll try again later." Hilma hadn't told Eric, but the time was quickly running out. She and Paul had received a bank loan to buy new furniture. Paul repeatedly asked her when the furniture would be delivered, but Hilma always had an excuse for the delay. The truth was, she had spent the money on herself. Eventually, he was going to find out. Hilma couldn't lie to her husband forever and told Eric it was now or never. She told Eric that if he didn't kill his father, she would commit suicide and leave him and his brother to be raised by their father. On the 1st of September 1981, Hilma left the house and told Eric she wouldn't return until he was dead. Eric sat alone in his bedroom, brooding over what to do as his father lay asleep on the living room couch. Hilma called her son one last time. "Is it done?" she asked. Eric again said he couldn't do it, but Hilma threatened. "I'm coming home in 15 minutes. If he's not dead when I walk in that door, I'm leaving tomorrow and you'll never see me again." Eric sat distressed for several minutes before he walked into the living room with a gun in his hand. He watched as his father slept on the couch. Through the front window he could see the headlights of his mother's car pulling up the driveway. Eric walked up behind his father and shot him in the head. Almost immediately after he fired the shot, Hilma walked in the front door to console her son, who was shaking in fear. He had done as she had asked. Hilma quietly calmed him, then picked up the phone and called 911. Waiting for police to arrive, she told Eric to stick to her story. She instructed him to tell police he found a gun and went into the living room to show his father when he tripped on the rug and the gun went off, hitting his father in the head. It was a believable story. The house was cluttered and unkempt. Again, Eric did exactly as his mother told him. Eric repeated the lie to detectives. A brief investigation ensued, and it was determined that it was simply an accident. Eric had accidentally shot his father and no charges were filed. Eric missed his father, but he felt no guilt for what he had done. At just 15 years old, with the coaxing of his mother, he believed killing his father was the only option he had to live a normal life. After Paul's death, his elderly mother, Elaine, invited the family to move in with her. She had always liked Hilma and thought of her daughter-in-law as the daughter she never had. Both boys enjoyed living with their grandmother, who had no idea that they had plotted and killed her own son. Hilma, Eric and John lived with Elaine for 3 years, until 74-year-old Elaine noticed that her social security checks were mysteriously disappearing from the mail. Elaine confronted Hilma about the missing money, but she denied knowing anything about it. Hilma, however, had actually been intercepting the checks, forging her signature and cashing them for herself. The tension was growing in the household when Eric noticed his mother doing something familiar. She was mixing something into Elaine's food. Eric knew what that meant and confronted his mother. He was angry. He felt he had killed his father out of necessity. The man was beating the family senseless. It was justified. He believed that if he hadn't killed his father, eventually his father would have killed one of them. But Elaine was just a nice older lady, as sweet as could be. She did not need to die. But Hilma disagreed. His mother again spoke incessantly to both of the boys about getting rid of their grandmother, but Eric didn't want to hear it. At 18 years old, Eric had very few options, but he knew one thing. He had to get away. If his mother was determined to kill Elaine, he didn't want to be part of it. In the summer of 1983, Eric enlisted in the United States Navy and left for boot camp in San Diego, California. However, Eric's mother wasn't going to let him get out of it that easily. Just weeks after Eric left for boot camp, Hilma worked her manipulation skills on her youngest son, 14-year-old John. She told John that because his brother Eric wasn't there to do it, he had to kill his grandmother Elaine. John spent the night in his grandmother's basement, smoking pot and drinking himself into a stupor, anguishing over what he would have to do the following day. On the 8th of January 1984, John snuck into his grandmother's bedroom and shot her in the ribcage with a medieval crossbow as she slept. The single shot killed her instantly. Within hours, with Elaine still dead in her bed, John and Hilma took a train to Chicago, where she was due to appear in court. She was trying to get Paul's, her dead husband, disability benefits. Hilma was able to convince the Navy to let Eric come home to Indiana before he even finished boot camp, explaining that there was a family problem. When Eric arrived back home, his mother took him to the basement. A freezer stood in the corner with chains and locks, keeping it tightly closed. Hilma opened the freezer to show her son what they had done. The body of Elaine, Grandma, had been reduced to small bits that fit into plastic trash bags. Hilma and John had spent the past week cutting up and disposing of Elaine piece by piece. The contents in each bag barely resembled anything human. They had dismembered the major joints using a chainsaw, hand saws, knives and chisels. They flushed as much as they could down a toilet and garbage disposal, then microwaved others into unrecognisable parts. Oh my gosh. Many parts were cooked in the oven and the deep fat fryer. Others had been dissolved with acid in the bathtub. The remaining pieces were placed into the bags, mixed with dirt to make them further unrecognisable, and frozen. This is why I say don't eat, guys, when I do this. Oh, Eric was in shock at what he saw, but his mother blamed him. It was all his fault. She told him that when he left for boot camp, he left the family without a better solution. Now she needed him to fix the situation, a situation that had gone wrong in so many ways. Eric was at a loss, not knowing what to do. He told his mother to tell Elaine's friends and family that she had gone on a long vacation. It was a temporary fix at best, and no proper solution at all. Trying yet again to distance himself from his mother's craziness, Eric drove back to San Diego with his friend Doug Menkel. But by the time they reached Tennessee, they noticed a putrid smell and flies buzzing around a large cooler his mother had placed in the back of his truck. When Eric opened the cooler, hundreds of maggots covered in black plastic bags with Elaine's remains inside. Hilma had given her son a parting gift. Scared to dump the bags along the way, Eric instead drove all the way to San Diego with them, rented a storage locker, left the bags there, and went back to boot camp. Back in Indiana, Hilma enlisted the help of her mother, Margaret, while John recruited a friend to help. Getting too many people involved now. We know it's just going to go sideways from here. Margaret is Hilma's mum, and John recruited a friend to help him get rid of the remaining body parts. The real problem, however, was Elaine's friends. They were growing impatient and didn't believe Hilma's story about Elaine being on vacation. 8 months had passed since Elaine's death, and Hilma didn't miss a beat, forging her signature and cashing Elaine's social security checks. A question for my American friends. How much do you think she's actually cashing in on these checks? Obviously, it's not worth it. But I'm just curious. Is it $100 or more or less? How much can a little old lady get in social security checks? I'm just curious. Sorry. I'll get back to it. Eventually, Elaine's friends went to the police and reported her missing. The detective assigned to the case was the same one that took the statement from Eric after his father's death. Just 3 years after an accidental shooting, another family member mysteriously went missing. The detective thought it was suspicious. With Elaine's friends and family constantly questioning her and law enforcement closing in, Hilma and John fled. To where? Go on, guess. Yep, San Diego. Hilma planned to pick up Eric, and the three of them would cross the border into Mexico. It wasn't to be, though. On November the 7th, 1984, Hilma and John were taken into custody in California, trying to cash one of Elaine's Social Security checks. Eric was arrested later in the day at the Naval Hospital in San Diego. 15-year-old John was the first to break. He confessed to killing his grandmother with a crossbow and cutting up her body. I mean, how traumatic is that? That's like me getting Reese. Not only to kill somebody, but to dismember him or them. Like him, her, them. I can't even comprehend that. By the time, however, there was nothing left of Elaine. The pieces of her body had been disposed of in random locations throughout Indiana, Illinois, and a landfill in San Diego. Initially, Eric did just as his mother requested and denied everything. Detectives also arrested Hilma's mother, Margaret, and Eric's friend, Doug, who both confessed to their involvement. Eventually, Eric took a plea deal. Both Eric and John were convicted of voluntary manslaughter and sentenced to 20 years in prison. Both were released after 11 years. Hilma denied involvement in either the crime and pinned the blame on her boys. She claimed John had killed his grandmother because he was obsessed with the game Dungeons and Dragons, but the court didn't buy her story. In 1986, Hilma Marie was sentenced to a total of 90 years in prison for the murder and conspiracy to commit murder. She was also convicted on several forgery and conspiracy counts in California for cashing Elaine's Social Security checks. Hilma has been denied parole twice, and she will be eligible for parole again in 2028. Wow. Okay, just wow. Yeah. I thought we would go back to a mum, a very, very bad mum, who doesn't deserve a Mother's Day in the UK or the States. I mean, I can't even comprehend getting your children involved and then having a 15-year-old. Well, he was younger than that. He was 15 years old when he was arrested. I don't know how long after Elaine, at least a year. So a 14-year-old boy having to not only kill his grandmother, but also to help dismember her. And Eric too. I mean, they both served 11 years because this awful mum convinced both of her children. And that's the power us mums have, right? I mean, I don't know why Eric didn't, just pop to the police in San Diego and say, you might want to just, go and arrest my mum. Oh my gosh. Can't even imagine. But there you go. Hilma Marie Whitty killed not only her husband, but his mother too, because she was greedy and didn't want to buy furniture for her house, and she spent money on herself. And then the mum, feeling sorry for the family who had lost their dad and their husband, said, hey, why don't you come live with me? And she said, cool, I'm going to kill you too and pinch all your social security checks, because she's just greedy. And that's all it boils down to, is money. Go get a job, you know? Oh my gosh. Unbelievable. Okay, so I went back and had a look, and Hilma is still in prison, and her mum pleaded guilty to assisting a criminal and was sentenced to 6 years in prison. I mean, no one's safe around this lass. And she died shortly after being released. And then Eric, the older boy, who killed his dad, they both did plea deals, and Eric was released from prison, in 1996, and Eric died in 2022 at the age of 56. John, the younger boy who killed Grandma, he was released in 1996, again with the same plea deal. They had to testify against dear old mum, and he died in 2008 at the age of 39. That's so sad. Okay, this is a question for the comment section. I kind of feel sorry for these two boys, and I know they did wrong, and they both killed people, but they were teenagers, and yes, teenagers know right from wrong, but not only were they severely abused by the dad, they were so manipulated by mum. So am I right to feel sorry for them? And that's the question thrown down to you guys, because I really do feel sorry for them. They were just teenagers, and yeah, they should have known better, but clearly not. Wow. But there you go. That is this week's true crime, while diamond painting and not kitting up. But yeah, I thought I'd switch up a little bit. So I'm still going to call it Murder, Mystery, Kitting Up Sunday, because, can't change it. Even though I'm not kitting up today, I'm diamond painting. Same thing, right? Same thing. Still diamonds, still drills. But yeah, there you go. How awful is this person? What possesses someone to rope your children in? I guess it was cheaper than hiring a hitman or doing the job yourself. Jeez. Yeah, she tried poisoning, and that didn't work, so she got her children to brutally shoot them, and with a crossbow. I mean, wow. Thank you so much for joining me for today's episode, and I hope you have a wonderful rest of your Mother's Day. I know it's not Mother's Day in the States, but I'm just going to give you a Mother's Day, okay? But yeah, it is here in the UK. It is Mother's Day, and yeah, what better way to celebrate than Mummy's Little Helpers? My gosh. Well, I hope you've all been spoilt rotten. Yeah. Wow. My gosh. I will be seeing you next week for another true crime. And yeah, don't forget I'm live tomorrow. Oh, now then, tomorrow's live is going to be very exciting because we have new releases, which I'm very excited to see your reactions to them because I think they're pretty cool. But we have new releases and we have giveaways as always. If you are a member here on my channel, I do giveaways for being a member here. I do owe you a backstage video, but I've just got so much going on right now that I'm packing up my house and anticipation of moving. So yeah, I know you all understand. I just, I feel like I let you down, but not as much as this mum did to her boys. I don't feel that badly, but I know you all understand and you all sympathise with me. Yeah, I've got a lot I want to talk about tomorrow, and just generally speaking. But yeah, we have new releases. We have the giveaways. We have the giveaways for Spring Flings. Loving your projects, guys. Super cute. You're all doing amazing at working through those. Then we have a special guest. It's not set in stone yet, but I'm hoping that this person is around to pop in, and a new collaboration. So a lot going on. So I will look forward to spending time with you tomorrow. Hopefully my headache will do one by then. And have an awesome rest of your weekend. And I will see you Monday. And as always, leave your thoughts and comments down below, because I love interacting with you guys. Your comments, wow, some of you get really invested into my true crime, and I appreciate that very, very much. I do. You really get invested, and I appreciate that. Massive shout out to Tammy Simon. I was in Nix's this morning, and she was like, "Hey, Cindy, are you doing a true crime, or have you got too much going on?" I said, "Hey, I've got you, girl. Let's do a true crime." I have got one to edit, and I was just going to edit that and pop that up. But because it's Mother's Day, I wanted to pay a special homage to all of the mums out there. Well, all of you females, actually. I'm going to change it. All of you females, whether you're a mum or regardless. All of you females, you're all amazing. You're all awesome, except Hilma Marie, obviously. She's not that awesome. And that other one, we've done 2 bad mums, haven't we? We had the wrestling freaky mum. I forget what her name was. What was that wrestling mum's name? Ellen Bowen. Boom. Something like that it was. And she was into wrestling. I kind of liked her for a little while until she turned psychotic. I thought I had a friend that I could share wrestling things with, but no, I'm not that obsessed with wrestling. And of course Cheryl Kunkel, she's a bit of a scumbag. So not all females are awesome, just you guys, okay? So long as you don't go out committing murders and stuff. Yeah, she murdered her husband, didn't she, Cheryl? She was a despicable human being. So not all females, but all of my fanatics and anyone who tunes into my true crime. You're all amazing, so stay amazing. Thank you for joining me, and I will see you tomorrow, and I'll be back next week with another true crime. Possibly kitting up, possibly dime painting. I don't know yet. Stay safe out there. Bye.